Welcome to the Dear Rockstar interviews and podcasts. My heart when I started this was to kind of get in and talk to people about their why for starting things and to press into the whole idea of life design and making a life we love by starting things. So I'm psyched today to get to share with you Kristen, Wylie, and Julien Meyer from Blurtbox, but I say Blurtbox, but really from just life. I'm so glad you guys are with me today.
Happy to be here. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, and so why don't, to help the viewer and the listener get a little bit of context, why don't you guys both introduce yourself and then tell us a little bit about where Blurtbox is right now?
Yeah, do you want to start off, Kristen?
I met you, I think, a while back. You've seen me work with a bunch of startups through the process.
Yeah, the startup social media woman, right?
You have social media rockstar.
Yeah, she got famous.
Well, I was really lucky to have some really good professors that I felt like really inspired me and told me, the one thing that's going to make you stand out in your age, in your industry, is by being good at something like social media. It was right when social media was becoming good, and it really gave you that benefit. Where most of the times youth isn't always the best thing when you're applying for a job, but in the area of social media at the time it was. So I decided to really dive deep into that and take as much as I could and learn from it. Yeah. And during that process, I also met Julien, and we were friends for a while. But oddly enough, we didn't talk about business until our
It's kind of a good thing, right? Like there's other things in life, because once you become business partners, it's like, we used to be friends. We used to like each other. We used to talk about things that didn't have to do with Blurtbox, right?
Yeah, well, thankfully we've kept a good relationship.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of good experiences with some other startups, with Clink, and I worked with them.
We work with Craig now, who's part of Blurtbox.
Yeah, I just was talking to Craig the other day, introduced him to an investor.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it's been a really fun journey, and I'm still learning every day, and Blurtbox has been such an amazing opportunity to learn a whole new side and really feel like I'm part of something even more so than the other projects.
So it was kind of social media. You started developing your skills in social media, so that's kind of what you're bringing to the Blurtbox team. Yeah,
the marketing social media aspect is what I'm trying to help bring to the team from that perspective.
And is that your passion, Kristen? Or
yes, I love marketing probably more than any person should.
I'm glad she didn't say more than any person, because I know she has a boyfriend, a co-founder.
The way I describe
more than any person should love marketing.
What's funny though is the way I see Kristen is I feel like there's very few people, and I think you're one of them, Pam, that find seriously,
I'm in the club.
No, that find what they want to do and they actually do it, and that's what they spend their life doing. It's not a job to them, it's not a career, it's their life. And I feel like Kristen fits so well in the role that she does. I mean, she does it all day long, every day, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
She just lives it.
I mean, Kristen makes me feel like an idiot when I talk about marketing and social media, because I'm like, how does she know all this? But it's just because she fits right in that spot. So it's great to work with someone like that.
Finding your sweet spot, right?
Yeah.
And where you come
it's like when you feel like and it doesn't feel like a job. So I think that's what, and I feel like you're like that about entrepreneurship in general.
I hope.
So every time I talk to him, I've learned just so much about the whole process. I mean, from fundraising to actually starting the business from the ground up. And that perspective that I feel like you can't learn in school without just doing it.
So you got into, your path into Blurtbox was you started doing social media marketing, and then with more and more startups, and then you met Julien, and then you came on his team.
I could tell the story if you want it, because
I want to hear your story too.
Well, it'll give my background and it'll say how we met. It's actually a pretty interesting story. So, before Blurtbox, I had a number of different small businesses. Some bad.
You had some other businesses.
Well, I had one in particular called College Stack, which was the coupon book business that went out on UCF's campus. We expanded it to a couple schools in New York, a couple schools all throughout the state of Florida. So it was doing really well. And we grew that business from like $30,000 a year in a dorm room to over $250,000 a year with 17 employees. So it was amazing. It was a great ride. And then all of a sudden it tanked. It was print advertising, and so lost everything, tried to make a bad investment to flip the business. And so all the kind of fun success that I had experienced was gone, and it was all taken away. And so it was getting towards the end of 2014. And so what ended up happening was we transitioned from print media and coupons into digital advertising. They kept us on as consultants, and we would do like their Facebook page management, their Twitter pages.
It's kind of like this was the iteration out of college
Yeah, we were just trying to keep some revenue coming into the business.
What's the value?
We were struggling. And the only services these businesses wanted to pay for was digital advertising. They did not want print advertising anymore.
Okay.
And so ended up having a really negative comment come in on one of the Facebook pages that we were managing, and got yelled at by the guy that was paying us, and he's threatened to cancel his contract. And so I kind of went to the drawing board and said, there's got to be a better way to kind of siphon what comes through on these public review sites. And I was managing Yelp accounts, and so I was right in that space of these public reviews, and I have a very basic programming knowledge, so I was able to put together just a web-based text box on the URL. Customer would leave a comment, and that comment would get emailed to me, and then I could email them back. So it was great, and didn't really think it was ever going to be a business. I mean, Pam, we were just losing money out the wazoo.
Right, you just solved a problem.
Yeah, and I could not afford to lose any more money, so I had to solve this problem. If not, I was going broke. Right, and I was probably already in debt to something. So. In any case, that was kind of the very beginning of Blurtbox 3 years ago. This is how I met Kristen from a business standpoint, because I'd always known Kristen. We had mutual friend groups. We actually found out we had a lot more mutual friends after we graduated. But so I'd see Kristen, we'd hang out together, we'd be on campus together, whatever. And so one night, both of our friends group happened to be at Buffalo Wild Wings, and I ended up sitting across the table from Kristen. And so I start telling her about what I'm doing, because we have nothing else to talk about. And she starts telling me about greenhouse and social media and marketing. And I'm like, this girl's a genius. I need to work with her. And so
this is how you get team members.
No, seriously. So a few weeks later, I sent her a text. I said, hey, can we meet up again? We went back to that Buffalo Wild Wings. And I asked her, I said, Kristen, here's what I want to do. And I basically told her the business idea for Blurtbox, which was not just to get these reviews privately, but to build a platform where customers could interface directly with owners.
Right.
And vice versa. So we could build this ecosystem of private communication.
Right.
And
that's really the magic of Blurtbox.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, he literally, I think you were drawing it literally on a napkin.
Yeah. It was,
trying to explain the concept of it.
Unfortunately, it's cliche, but yeah.
Yeah, it was like...
do a lot of napkin stuff. But so anyway, so that was, I took it to Chris and I said, would you want to be a part of this at all? And she was like, yeah, I love it. I think this could be the next big thing. And it was literally like that, and we kind of just took off running and started to slowly put a team together.
Created an operating agreement.
No, nothing.
None of the technical stuff. Just started executing.
It's like, Chris, I'm about to go broke. Do you want to help me out? Because I need to get through this.
So I hope you leveraged a really big chunk of equity.
We had a deadline. We had to create so much collateral. I mean, I think in a month we turned around between you. He was working on the development. Greenhouse. He's mentioning Greenhouse Agency. It's the agency that I work at is my normal 9 to 5.
Right.
Lots of things outside of it, like Blurtbox.
Which ended up being a blessing in disguise because we now have a powerhouse marketing firm, thanks to Kristen.
So tell us a little bit about where Blurtbox is now. Okay, so what's happened? Give us a couple of the inflection points.
So I would say that was probably the very beginning of the idea, and then it took about 6 to 9 months to really build it, test it, see if there was going to be a business around it. And then it wasn't until 6 or 9 months in. Did you have clients, customers testing it with you, or you were testing it yourself? We were going out to people and begging them to test in their restaurants.
Yeah. So you had active clients using it.
Nobody was paying us.
And he had a great network, too, from his previous, connections of college staff.
Right. So about 6 months in, then I decided, hey, we're going to make this into a real business, put the legal whatever together to make the business, which is super easy.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal as many people like to say it is, but we did that, and then we raised $100,000 in seed investment for it from an angel investor, and that was the money needed to kind of really develop it into a software that we could sell, and we officially launched it at the National Restaurant Association show. I saw that. That was brilliant. Yeah. That was brilliant. So you went to a trade show where your target market is, and you launched there. And what happened?
And it was the most bootstrapped project I think anyone's put together.
You can't worry about looking bad because this is supposed to inspire other people that think they don't have enough money to start something.
Yeah.
Right?
We called up our friends from our mutual friend groups to fly out there, and they got a trip to Chicago in exchange for working a show.
Hey. It worked for free for 5 days.
They were awesome.
I feel really bad because I didn't buy the padding for the carpet.
Wait, we didn't buy carpet. We were the only ones without carpet.
We went to Walmart and we rolled out 4 blankets.
We saved a good, probably $500 there?
500, Kristen. Okay, the average booth price is $18,500. We did our entire trade show for $11,000.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it was nuts.
But this is how we have to think, like, because people are always seeing all these obstacles, right? But if you can think outside the box, you can get the obstacle down to be a smaller thing.
It was amazing because we actually had people coming up to us thinking that we were huge. They're like, how many locations do you have? How many 100 employees do you have? Right. It worked in our favor tremendously, and the contacts we got from that, I think, validated.
You did something there with the coasters, you did some really good. I've heard little parts of your story. Customer acquisition. You started getting people onboarding, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you go ahead.
So Chris and I are really creative, and you probably don't want to put the two of us. This is probably a bad idea because we'll talk for hours. And so just imagine if it's the two of us at a table with a cup of coffee. The ideas we come up with are through the roof. So one of the ones we came up with was this idea that we were just going to kind of target Yelp. And Kristen had this idea to make these anti-yelp.
Caleb from Greenhouse.
Well, they were like these anti-yelp.
Yelp with like a line through it?
The anti-yelp.
Yeah. And so at first I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea. They're going to yell at us. They're going to sue us. You start thinking about all these things. And we didn't use them at first. And all of a sudden, some of them fell out of a box that we had. And people were coming up to us like, oh, this is great. I hate Yelp. I can't get over this.
You would see like the fire in people's eyes when they saw it.
Because
these are restaurant owners.
With Yelp has been what? The problem that you discovered was what?
Yelp is great as a social tool. We're not taking that. Right. We're not taking away what Yelp does for people. It's a very, very good consumer-to-consumer website.
Right.
But in terms of being a business owner, if you've ever owned a physical location, there's other aspects that are involved with running that business, right? So if you're training an employee, it's unfair for a consumer to go and put you on blast with paragraphs of negativity that could destroy your business because you were training one employee.
Right. And then Yelp is known for only showing the negative reviews unless you pay for it. And they've actually gone to court several times over it. So business owners definitely don't have a great view of.
So there was pain. There was real pain in the market.
Well, there still
and there was a real opportunity to do something different.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of Blurt Box is to be able to connect the consumer with the business owner so that they can make a meaningful change in their business that's actually going to benefit both the consumer and the business.
If I'm angry, I send this confidentially to the business.
Yeah.
The business now can deal with me. Is that what Blurtbox does?
And and actually the way Blurtbox works is when we started this out, we were going to make it an app and we were going to be the next review type service. And we realized really quickly that apps are kind of overdone, at least in today's market. And it's really tough to get past the noise and to reach critical mass of users. We weren't going to get there.
And through the process, that was a process to learn, like Julien said, starting with the app and then realizing, we are a B2B, we're B2B business. We need that we're fixing something that's a pain point for them. The customers do like it too, but first and foremost
is the business. So what happened at the restaurant show? So by the time you get out of there, what's happened?
By the time we get out of there, we have an Excel sheet, a lead sheet of literally like 200 qualified people that we had talked to that said they would use this in their business. And
so now you have the cost of what that cost, and you've got potential clients that can pay.
Right.
Exactly.
Validated leads.
And since this was our big launch, we hadn't had any sort of market validation like that of any type. And we went in thinking, I think we were like, let's get 10 or 5. We had like very, reasonable expectations, and we left and it pretty much blew away all of our
So what's happened since then?
So since then, we launched there. Then we had that huge pivot, which doesn't sound like a big pivot to go from an app to a B2B company, but we really changed our entire business from B2C.
What was the insight? How did you got it there, who the client was?
No, it was actually months after. So what happened after the trade show was we ended up literally cold calling these people afterwards and saying,
and you still think your target is the consumer?
Well, after the show, we still thought the target was the consumer.
So we were viewing it more as like, I think, a symbiotic relationship. But
two-sided.
And we were saying we got to get both sides.
We were like C to B and B to B. We were all over the place.
That's
Typical
right.
startup, didn't know who we were selling to.
So what was the insight where you saw, our client is the business?
It was after one of the phone calls with one of the bigger customer leads that we had. And I'm going to leave them nameless, but basically the way the conversation went was, oh yeah, this is great, let's do a pilot. And we find out 6 weeks later that they built their own internal tool to manage their feedback, basically copying a lot of the front-end stuff that we had. And so that was kind of the moment where we were like, we just lost what could have been our biggest customer ever, thanks to not being nimble enough and quick enough to adapt. So it was...
Because you hadn't built that out yet.
Well, we had built out the consumer part so nice,
right?
But we hadn't built out to the point what they were, what they were looking for, because we were trying to fix the pain point, but there were still some pain points I think that we hadn't addressed yet.
So they showed you where the product needed to go.
Exactly, and we listened, and so that was the big pivot, and that kind of took us the entire summer just to shift the business into that whole dynamic and become a B2B. Because becoming a B2B enterprise company is very different than trying to be an app. And so we had to do a lot more just customization, working closer with bigger customers. So once we made that pivot, we started doing a lot more data analysis. And that's really what Blurtbox has become. Is we're now a big data company that processes customer feedback all in real time and then generates reports for the end user.
Wow.
So that the manager can just get a printout every month that says, hey, we have to clean the breadcrumbs on the side of the booths because that's why people aren't coming back in. Blurtbox got picked up by, it's Google, but it was Google's venture capital portion, and one of the people out there had submitted Blurtbox to be selected for this thing called Web Summit, which is the biggest tech conference in the world for startups, and it was in Dublin this year, and we were selected to demo, so they paid for us to come out there.
Wow.
They paid for us. We got to talk to Google, we talked to Facebook, we talked to Microsoft, and that was a big turning point because after talking to Microsoft, we actually built our whole engine to plug into all those different Microsoft programs. So we're now built on Microsoft Azure, which was huge to unlocking the enterprise side of the business. So
Microsoft what? What's the enterprise? Azure.
Yeah. So.
Right. Okay. Wow. And then the next
And then the next big thing. So we've grown a lot since then, and now we're actually a revenue generating company. We're in a late seed round of financing. So we've had the ability to go out to San Francisco a number of times and meet with a bunch of big companies out there. And from doing that, we won a competition in San Francisco that actually got us into TechCrunch Disrupt. So we'll be demoing at the first event in Atlanta this week, and then hopefully.
So you are just guys on Skyrocket. Like when you, how long ago did you start this?
Officially was
because if you count the launch was May,
right,
mid-May of last year. So
it's been a year.
Yeah, not even a year.
It's been a year.
Yeah.
So when it's right, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your guys' why. What's your why behind all this that you're doing, Julien? Like if you were to say your why for being an entrepreneur, for starting things.
Yeah, I think it goes back to saying what I was saying at first, what I think about you and Kristen. I think it's very hard for a lot of people to find what it is they want to do in life. And I think a lot of people get to that point maybe when they retire and they find what it is they want to do then. And some people have the blessing of finding it early on. And I've always felt really, really lucky because every day I wake up and I mean, Pam, there's weeks that I'm miserable, there's months that I'm miserable, but I always tell people, I say my worst days are probably better than some of my friends' best days because they're not doing what they want to do. Yeah. You know, and
just
so
note to self, like I'm doing what I want every day.
Right, you're chasing something. When you're chasing a dream or you're chasing, you have a goal in mind, it's very, very difficult to walk away from that. And I think at this point, it would be impossible for me to stop doing it.
So your why is?
My why is because why do something you're not happy doing, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. So I'd rather wake up excited every day and work an 18-hour day, 7 days a week, and love it because it doesn't feel like work.
What's your why, Kristen?
I mean, I think it's very similar, but I really want to enjoy the people I work with. And I've been at Greenhouse for a little over 3 years, and I also love, just wanting to learn something new all the time and new challenges. I don't want, I get bored, I feel like, easily. And one area where you never, I feel like, get bored is in the entrepreneurial realm because it's constantly changing. So I felt like it just really clicked for me. I've done marketing for, businesses that are just, your normal mom and pop. And then I've done ones that are more, bigger companies or, ones like a solar company or this. And there's different, challenges with each of them. But the one that I identify with most is I just love the challenge of a startup because it's how much can I do with how little.
Yeah, right.
And I just
got all these constraints,
exactly,
right? and all these unknowns,
and it's just so exciting to me, and I do just love it. So it kind of goes back.
So talk to me a little bit. You've been in something that went up and then started nosediving, and then something that's taken off kind of fast. When you step back from your journey, what's been the toughest moment in your entrepreneur history?
That's a phenomenal question. I think the toughest moment was realizing that you kind of have to put everything at risk anytime you want to get to that next level, because for me, I did get to a point where I was comfortable after that.
When did that happen for you? Give us the specifics.
It was when College Stack tanked. So when College Stack kind of lost all its money, I had two options then, Pam. I had some savings from that business, and I could have probably gone on. I was offered a few different jobs at startups. One was for a CEO role, one was for an executive role. So, I mean, they were good, high-paying jobs. And I thought to myself, I sat there with a job offer in one hand and with this idea for Blurtbox in the other. It was as cliche. I mean, it was literally the two on my desk. And I sat there and I said, I could go down this route of getting a job, and it'll probably be fun. I'll definitely be more comfortable, have more money, and probably be healthier.
Definitely be more comfortable.
But then all of a sudden, I saw myself like 30, 40 years down the line. I said, that's not the person I'm going to want to end up being. And so for me, it's always been about, this option, it was really tough because you put everything on the line. All that money gone. I mean, all the protection, safety gone. I mean, everything gone. No safety net whatsoever. And but then you look and you see, wow, well, the opportunity cost of not going down that route is much greater than whatever safety net I would have had there. So
stop. Just the opportunity cost of not doing it. We're told and socialized so much about the risk factor, but who talks about the opportunity cost of always staying over here,
right,
not doing what you love, and not knowing if that upside is going to be better? Who more to invest in, yourself,
right,
or someone else?
And that, like I said, that's the hardest part, because at first nobody else is going to invest in you.
No. You've got to make the investment in yourself. Right. If it's only time, like we talk about people that are working jobs and starting something. At that point, you're just investing, believing in yourself, and putting your time in to see if you can create some traction, right?
Yep.
What's been your hardest moment working and starting something?
With starting something, I mean, one of the toughest moments for me, just in general, was I'd been with Greenhouse for a while, and it was kind of similar to that. I
had a job.
I had a job, and I got offered a really, really nice, comfortable other job as well. And Greenhouse, I mean, we're a smaller agency, and I've gotten an amazing opportunity to be able to really have my hand in, I think, everything. And I'm, like I said, learning every day. And then this other opportunity came along, and it just really tore, I was like, what do I do? You go to school to get that really good job, but then it's like, I had so many friends go do jobs and just hate everything they were doing. So I finally, when I made that decision to stay with Greenhouse, because Greenhouse is very flexible with my opportunities to work with Blurtbox, to work with other startups, and actually supports things outside of work, which, I mean,
so the hard part for you was seeing these two opportunities and let go.
So just figuring out.
So you've seen a lot of, you've lived this starting something thing. What are some of your spiritual practices, or what do you do to, what's the hard part of being an entrepreneur, and how do you handle it?
Yeah, well, I think the first big thing is, thank God I have a great relationship with my family. So I have a very, very strong support system there. And definitely give my mom a heart attack, because I think every time I call her up, she's panicking. But they're always there, and they're always, supportive. And when something goes wrong, they're always the ones that say, hey, we're going to keep in prayer. We're going to look out for you. And you need to have that, whether it's a friend, whether it's a mentor. For me, it happens to be my family, but that's huge. And the other thing for me is my big release is I go to church a lot, and not just every Sunday. I'm Catholic. So faith. I mean, for me, it's just been, you need to have something outside of work when you're working 18-hour days, 7 days a week, and just to be able to kind of step aside, even if it's for 5 minutes, a quick prayer or something. I mean, it just, you have to reset your mind every now and then. So that's been, for me, the spiritual side of it is, just looking to God for when I don't have all the answers. Because 90% of the time, you think you have the answer and it's wrong. So,
I think we call that wisdom, is that we don't, when we get to that point, you're pretty young to have gotten to that point already that you don't have all the answers, right? So how has your faith impacted your business?
I think, honestly, only for the better, because for me, you can get really overwhelmed really easily when you start to think about, wait a minute, we're actually really in debt. We have no promise of money coming in. I have to pay people this week. And I've done the typical no money for payroll. I had to cut the check myself. And I mean, those moments are really difficult. There was one time I almost didn't let go of the check to get to the banker. I mean, it was that bad. And so I think for me, it's like a lot of those... I
believe you got that. Could I have some proof right now?
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of those could break you. I mean, I've definitely had moments where I've gotten to almost really just rock bottom where I could say, you know what, it's time to just let Blurtbox go and do something else. And just being able to say, hey, you know what, I'm just say a quick prayer, I'm going to get through this and move on with it. That's been huge. So
we talk about that faith to believe in the unseen, and that I really do think a starter that has that spiritual foundation has an advantage, because there are so many times you can't see the results. Like, you're working on starting something, but you're just cultivating the soil.
Yeah.
And you don't know how close you are to reaping the harvest, right?
Right. It's like when there's no end in sight, you need something to get you through it.
Yeah.
So
faith.
Yeah, I'd say
family.
Yeah, faith, family. You know, I do my best to try and make time for friends, but I think another thing too is if you love what you. I had somebody ask me the other day. I did an interview last week for one of the newspapers, and the question was, "What do you do for fun?" And I kind of froze. And I said, "Well, fun for me is building this business. I mean, that's really what I do for fun. So the more I can read about it, the more I can code something or do just something for it. I love it." So
what do you believe about this whole thing about a balanced life, or when people say get a balanced life or a work-life balance? What do you say to people about that?
I don't, maybe
let's just tell the truth.
I think it's the same way, because people say to me, I mean, they're always like, "Oh, you're crazy," because I do it at work and then I go home and then I do it at home. Like, I do all the social media, all that, and they're like, "Don't you ever want to just unplug?" But it's like, that is how I unplug. Like, I don't know if it's like that, but if I'm not doing it, like, it's like, I don't know, I'm not happy.
I feel like it's bad advice to say that there is no such thing as a work-life balance, but I mean, I definitely, I don't think I
think it's important to have people in your life, though, that can,
pull you
out, and
that's
like,
a good thing.
Have, a night where you go out with your friends, and like have those friends that will pull you out and say, like, okay, we're not going to go on a week vacation, but you can come out tonight and go to dinner, like,
we're going to have 4 hours of no work, right? Or some boundaries around some sacred relationship.
I think the problem is we hang out with business people too, which is the problem. That's the other problem.
The support system, I mean, I think a lot of people talk about hanging out with other entrepreneurs really helps you. I mean, it's like helps and hurts probably, but it really, because it allows you, because other people think you're crazy. So if you don't have that person that believes in you, other people.
I think this is so important. Not only having, like what you said with your family, but you also have other people that get that when you're building something or creating something, there's this inordinate amount of energy and time that has to go into it. And it's just a part of it. It's not maybe that's always going to be what your life looks like, but it's how do you maneuver that? Right? It's the real stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think, what do you know now about starting things that you would tell your younger self?
Probably tell my younger self that I still don't know anything. That's the one thing I've learned, is that you have to be so willing and able to pivot and learn and adapt, because you have to, on the one hand, you have to believe in what you're doing so much more than anybody else, that you kind of have to be a little bit egotistical about it, a little bit arrogant about it, but by the same token, you have to have this absolute willingness to accept, hey, I was completely wrong thinking that. And once you have that freedom to like admit, like, hey, I was an idiot to try that, but this is how it's going to work, you can move and adapt so much quicker. And I think, College Stack took 4 or 5 years to build. Blurtbox has taken really 4 or 5 months to get to a much higher point scalability than College Stack ever was. Right. And so,
and if you had never done College Stack, you wouldn't have been in the same point with Blurtbox.
Right.
I mean,
well, I think you said something that's really interesting. I just read something that Gladwell was talking about. He talks about the entrepreneur needing useful delusion, and I put it in my newsletter this week, but useful delusion and overconfidence. And on one hand, we need that, and then we need this real openness and this not wisdom of, I don't know what I don't know. So if you can kind of have your delusion and overconfidence about, you're going to solve it, but hold lightly to how.
Yeah.
And be really open, then all the feedback you've gotten, ends up saying, okay, this is the solution.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's pretty.
And I think the flip side too, and I think we've probably learned this together as we've kind of gone through this journey, is there's also, as you get further and further along, there's a lot of stuff you shouldn't listen to, which is, I think that's...
How do you know what to listen to and what not? What would you tell people out there?
I mean, I'm a big proponent of, like, just do it, see how it works. I mean, if it's not, I know some things are such an investment that you can't always do that, but if it's something that you can try on your own, I'm a big, like, I don't believe anything, and I'm very skeptical. I don't believe it till I see it. So I'll test out anything, and I think it's important to admit when it doesn't work, but I think testing it out is always important. I think with what you were talking about, though, with people giving bad advice, sometimes it's just, look at what experience they have too, because I feel like a lot of people come to you giving you advice, and then you really look at their background, and they've never done it before. It's not saying that they're not smart people, but... Well,
yeah, and not to be cynical, but I think there's a decent amount of people out there where it's just too much for them to grasp. Entrepreneurship isn't really, it's not an easy road. It's not a typical road.
It's an art form, don't you think?
It's a
more
complete
than a science. Yeah. And there's so many variables based on your vertical and your value proposition and your current competitors. There's so much art in this.
Well, I used to describe entrepreneurship as painting a picture, so I definitely believe it's an art more than a science, more than a mathematical equation, but recently I've described it as a ball of clay, right? And you kind of start with this ball of clay, and it's nasty, and it's gray, and it has no form, it has no shape, and you work it, and you continue to work it, and you work it, and it can turn into something beautiful and amazing. But if you stop working at it, it's just going to end up as this half-done pile of mush. Right? And so I think you have to be able to get through those tough times where it's not perfect yet, but you just have to keep going, molding. So
what do you tell yourself? Because it sounds like you've had a lot of those moments, like handing over the cash at the end. Yeah. What do you actually do in those moments where it feels like the normal person would give up?
I think, I'll let you jump in a second, but I think for me, the big thing was, it was probably the 5th or 6th time that something pretty big had happened for me, like hitting my stomach, like, this might be the end, like, I don't know what I'm going to do after this. I said, you know what, if I want to do this for the rest of my life, I should probably just learn to laugh when I get that pit in my stomach and turn it into something positive. So now for me, it's like, oh yeah, this is nowhere near normal, but forget it, I'm going to do it anyway. So for me, it's always been about like, well...
So it's a redefining, reframe. You say, oh yeah, this is normal, because I'm taking a risk.
A complete reframe, yeah.
I think it's the whole going back to, would you regret it too if you didn't do it? Like, thinking about that. Like,
I love that question. Will I regret it if I quit now?
Yeah. So I think it's important that, to think about if you're going to regret it if you don't do it. And just, I mean, it's always that cliche, like Nike, like just do it kind of thing. Yeah. But I think about that a lot. Like sometimes I'm just like, because if you wait 2 weeks to do something that you could have done that day, I don't know, I'm very much like, just do it, get it out of the way, see if it works, and see what happens.
Yeah. I was reading something about idea debt. And this idea of all the future projects we have is taking all this space and keeping us so busy in ideation that we can't go out and take any action, right? And so what I hear you two saying is it's action, 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 and it's scary. It's risky. Yeah. But that's the only thing that's going to inform what to do next.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, you have to execute even when everything and everybody else tells you this is a stupid idea. Because that's the only time you'll learn whether or not it's a stupid idea or it's the best idea of your life.
Right, because if all the feedback is nobody wanted this thing, then you would be iterating and doing something different.
Right.
And
at least you fail right away. You get to know from people that, hey, this actually is stupid.
You're not just kind of stringing it along. It's like, okay, find out if it works or it's going to...
If not, you're going to end up being 30, 40 years down the line saying, man, what if I was the one that did that? And that would be miserable. I mean, that for me alone is worth taking every financial or monetary time risk there is.
So what would your advice be? We have people listening to us that want to start something. They actually have a passion. They've been thinking about it for a long time. They're on the fence. What's your advice to someone?
What would you say?
I always say, I'm a big proponent of it doesn't have to be perfect if you just go ahead and do it. I mean, I have 2 blogs that I started, and
they're really good.
I know, she's
those are that's my like hobby. That's the fun part, or I guess my free time.
She does the Blurt Box one too. So,
but I mean, a lot of people ask that even about starting a blog. It's not necessarily a full-on business, but I'm like, just do it. Like they try and read through it a million times to make sure there's no comma missing. It doesn't matter
just start.
To me. Like,
don't make it perfect.
You can edit it later. It's kind of like a business. Like, just start, because then you're going to learn. If you're perfecting it and work too far without knowing.
And so the person says to you, but what do I do first?
I mean, find who your potential customer is and start talking to them.
First of all, to play off Kristen's advice, if you don't know where to start, just pick one thing and start doing it, because you're always going to sit there and be like, well, should I do this first or should I do this first? It really doesn't matter at the end of the day. It doesn't matter. But to partly on top of what Kristen's saying, I think the biggest lesson that I wish someone would have told me is that after you start, you have to persevere. Because it only gets harder. It gets harder and harder and harder, and it gets worse and worse and worse and miserable. And I mean, I read a book.
We haven't impressed you yet. Just keep going.
No, I mean, look, I read a book on Elon Musk the other day, and he described entrepreneurship as chewing glass and staring into the abyss, and I think it's a perfect...
Chewing glass and staring into the abyss.
I think it's a perfect way to look at it, but by the same token, you have to realize that's his biography.
Okay.
Yeah, really good. But I think for me, I wish someone would have told me that at first, because a lot of people like to show the party part of it, or, hey, we're going to code all night and drink beer, like the fun side of it. And it's like, yeah, those days definitely exist, and that's what keeps you going. You have these like crazy high days of like, wow, this is the greatest thing on earth.
But mostly not.
Yeah.
At least at first.
And so I think the best advice that I ever got was from a mentor of mine that said, just don't give up. I mean, that's what it is. You just can't give up. It's going to happen for you if you outlast the competitors, if you outlast the competition. You're going to get there. So that's my advice. And even with the undertone of, look at it as, hey, it's going to be a lot of hard work and all this, it's really a beautiful thing. Because at the end of the day,
you're building a life,
something
right?
from nothing.
Like a life that you believe in.
Yeah.
Right? And you have some level of control over it because you're investing your own passion, your soul, and finding some meaning in it.
Well, and it becomes the sum of all the parties involved. I mean, we have an awesome team now that we've slowly put together, but Blurtbox isn't just me. I mean, it's maybe 0.01% me. It's 99.9% the team, the mentors, the people we've talked to, the customers. So it ends up becoming this kind of collaborative, beautiful effort. And going back to that molding of clay, I don't think we have a final marble statue or anything yet, but I think we're getting pretty close to something that's really nice to look at.
Right, so we can find you on Blurtbox, right?
Yeah.
And what's your vision for Blurtbox?
I think really to just disrupt that customer feedback space, because my background's in hospitality, and so to me it's fundamentally broken that we still use paper comment cards, or we still use like these 40 question surveys to get a free donut at places that will remain nameless. Why isn't it easy?
Even though they make donuts.
All right. Why isn't it easy for us as customers to interact with the businesses that we patronize, right?
Especially when the business wants that more than anything. The only businesses that stay in business is because they listen to their customer. So
really the vision is just to improve the customer service experience. That's what it is.
All right, and we can find you at blurtbox.com.
Right.
I appreciate so much your passion and just the message of perseverance, and that it's a lifestyle. Actually, like what we're talking about today is this isn't a startup, this isn't an adventure, this is a lifestyle of saying, hey, I want to be this kind of person showing up this way in the world, and so this is how I invest myself, and I'm going to keep showing up, and hopefully it's going to have great results. If not, I'm going to find something else. Yeah. This is who I want to be on the planet.
Yeah.
I want to start things, I want to lead things, I want to create things, I want to solve problems. So thank you guys so much for being here. We'll all check out Blurtbox, but more importantly, we want you to just keep spreading all the good love. Keep praying. Keep working hard.
Thank you.
And for you guys, if you want to start something, get over to pamhoelzle.com and check out all the goodies there. Also, follow us on iTunes at Dear Rockstar, or subscribe on YouTube to Dear Rockstar. And go start something.